API types we know, and what API types we can test in Postman. Then we will proceed to HTTP methods and request structure, and where I will show you what HTTP methods are used in Postman, what request can we test, and how to create API requests that we will test. Then we will talk about collections, environments, and variables, which are essential parts of Postman UI, and I can say it's essential of working with Postman. Then we will talk about dynamic variables, which are very useful in API testing, and its embedded Postman function, which can really ease your work and are really helpful when we use Postman for API testing. Then we will jump into scripting, and we will talk about pre-request and post-response scripts, which can include some test data preparation or tests for the request. So we will test how the response is behaving, so we can test status codes and response contents and much more. And as a last topic, there will be Newman automation, where we will talk about how we can automate Postman tests via command line interface, and how can we use it, for example, in a CI/CD automation. And the last part of this webinar will be time for your questions, and I will be answering them. Okay, so let's start. What API types we know and what can we test in Postman? First of all, it's REST APIs, REST protocol, which is today the mostly used protocol for APIs. It uses JSON format and is widely spread across the companies. And it's probably also the easiest one to test for us. Then we can also test SOAP protocols, which is a bit older and not so user-friendly for testing, I would say, from my experience. But it's still widely used in big companies like banking, insurance, etc. And we can also test it in Postman. Then there is GraphQL, which is pretty new and is a modern API type, which is really efficient and that doesn't require a big request structure. It basically works like you get what you ask for. So if you send request for returning only ID and name, in response you will get only ID and name. You won't get the whole response, like for example in REST or SOAP. And the last API types that we can test in Postman are gRPC. gRPC stands for Google Remote Protocol, and we can not really say it's widespread because it's pretty new and not a lot of companies are using it right now. And also we can test WebSockets interfaces. But today we will talk mostly about REST, because Postman functions can be shown in the best way according to the REST protocols. Okay. So the basic HTTP methods that are used in REST are get, post, put, patch, and delete. And maybe you know the CRUD analogy from databases, and these methods stay for these operations. So for example, C, like create, we use post method, and it means it will create a new record in the database. Then there is R, which means read, and for this we use get. So we will fetch some information from database. Then there is U, which means update. And for these two, we would use put or patch. Difference between these two is with put, we are modifying the whole record in the database, and patch is meant to modify only the part of the record. But in today's testing and basically in IT infrastructure and architecture, the put is mostly used, patch is not that much used. And then we have D for delete, and this means to delete a record from database. So it's pretty easy. And as you will see in our demo in Postman, it's pretty straightforward what to use. And when in real life, you will proceed based on the technical specification or documentation that you will receive from your developers or architects, and you will have specified which method to use and what API calls are implemented with which method. Okay, and right now we will have a survey going on. So you can check the question and you can answer. Okay. Okay, so for you who don't know where the survey is, it's also as the bottom red corner with the 9 dots, and there you will find section with the survey. Okay. You can check the answers. Okay, we have 18 votes, and most of you are right. Yes, it's a post method, which is used mostly to create new record in the database. Perfect. Okay, so we can continue in our presentation in a moment. Right. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about request structure. I will show you in a minute how it looks like in Postman, but a bit of boring theory for the start. The first one in the request structure is endpoint. So the URL of the service on the server where it is running. So for example, we will use Swagger Pet Store, and our URL will be swaggerpetstore.com/petstore. Okay, so it's basically the address of the server where the request will be sent. Then we will have headers, and these are used for metadata about the requests. The mostly known ones are content type, which stands for what content are we sending to the server. And in the case of REST APIs, it's application/JSON. So we will send JSON content because the REST APIs are working with JSON bodies. And if we are testing SOAP protocols, the content type header will be set to text/ XML because SOAP protocols works with XML bodies. Other headers which are worth to mention are authorization, which is probably the most important one, because the how the services are designed in companies are based on user authorization. There is no way that the service will not require authorization. So you will have to provide, for example, API key or token or some other authorization mechanism. And you will have to send this token or API key in the authorization header. So the request will be successfully sent, and you won't get any status code like 401, which means you are not authorized, and you will have to assure yourself that you are sending this authorization header right, because if not, then you are done with your testing, and you have to have enough user rights and permissions, and also have this token and authorization mechanism done right. And I will show you in Postman how we can set different authorization types. Okay, then the crucial part is the body. And the body is used in put, post, and also sometimes deletes and updates. And it's basically the content, what we are sending in our request. And as I mentioned, in REST, we use JSON, which is pretty easy to understand and pretty easy to work with. In case of GET, GET services are not working with bodies. We are specifying the queries in endpoint. So most of the times it's with query parameters, which you can differ with question marks. So the everything which is behind question mark in endpoint is already a query parameter and it's used in GET requests. Yeah, and the last piece of the request structure, as I mentioned, it's authorization. And in Postman, we have two options. We can directly set authorization header, or we can use the functionality to set up authorization that Postman provides us. And we can go to Postman and let's take a look how it works. So I'll open the Postman here. I'll make it bigger now. And as you can see, I have here some collection, which we will talk about later. But we have some post request in here. And what you can see in this top panel is method definition. And in this case, based on the API documentation, we use post method. You can open this dropdown, and you will see that there are available methods that we can create a REST request with. And in this case, we are using post, so I will choose post. Okay. Then you'll see this address bar, and this is exactly meant for the endpoint. And as you can see, here is endpoint to the Postman Echo API. It's API provided by Postman for testing purposes, and they have this endpoint available for testing. And this is where the API lays. So we are sending request to this address, which is our endpoint. Next, there is section body. And here you are writing your JSON body. So in real life, based on the API specification, you will write the JSON content here. And what is important, you can select these radio buttons depending on what body type you are using. We can switch it to none, but then our request won't pass because we need to send JSON body. And we can also use form data or encoded URL. But in our case, when we need JSON, we simply check raw. And when we start typing, the Postman will automatically detect that we are using JSON. But there are also more options like text, JavaScript, HTML, and XML. And if it was the case that we are testing SOAP protocol, we would choose XML, and we will pass the XML body here. Okay, back to the presentation. Oh, I forgot the authorization. I'm sorry, and the headers. Okay, so be right back. Okay, yeah. There is also headers section, and here is the space for you to define your headers. As you can see, there are already some predefined. This is an embedded Postman function, and here we have headers like connection, accept encoding, accept or host. But we can also specify our own headers based on the specification that we have. So we have the content type, which is application JSON. Then we have xtime, which is used for the timestamps to identify when the request was sent. And it's really helpful when we have to debug some issues or errors. So we can define when the request was sent, and we can easily search it in the server logs, for example. Then there is authorization header. And we have two options, as I mentioned. We can directly type token here, but we don't do that often because Postman has the functionality to create authorization header and to perform authorization process for us. So if I click on the authorization, we have this drop down here, and after clicking on it, we have quite a lot of options about API authorization. For example, we can choose basic authorization, and basic authorization works based on base 64 encoding. And what we are encoding is username and password. So if we have basic authorization implemented in our APIs, we type the username and the password, and that's all we have to do because Postman will do all the work. So I don't have to do anything else. I specify my credentials, and then I will specify my body and send the request, and it will work because the Postman does the magic behind the closed doors. So we don't see it, but it works. And also, what is really useful, we can use OAuth 2.0, and we can configure new bearer token for our requests. We can choose a token name, and then based on what OAuth we have implemented, we can choose the grant type, which is mostly client credentials. We have to specify access token URL, client ID, client secret, and scope. And here you can see that client authentication, we can send it as a basic authorization header. So it will directly be sent as a header. So if you have in your specification also specified how to work with auth, you can just simply fill in the fields as mentioned. And when you send the request, the OAuth token will be generated for you, and you don't have to send any other requests or anything else. Okay, so now we can go back to the presentation. Nice. Postman. Okay, work organization. In Postman, we work with collections and environments, and it's pretty straightforward and easy. Collections works like folders, or better said, test suites. So we will create new collection, which will act as your test suite, and under the collection, you will create new API requests. And then we have environments, and this is really useful for working with variables, which I will show you on the next slide. But as a testers, we know that we are not testing only on one environment. Most of the times we have dev environment, we have some integration environment, we have acceptance environment, and also the live environment. But there we should know that there. And we know that for different environments, there are also different testing data. And for example, endpoints, or the user IDs, or the users, or anything else. And you want to work with this data in a most effective way, and not to rewrite the testing data in the requests every time that you are testing on a new environment. And that's where the environments come into picture in Postman. And I will show it to you on the example right now, and you will see the beauty of it. Okay. So we can go to Postman. And as you can see, there are already collections mentioned, and I already have some of the collections. But if we want to create new collection, we can simply click on this plus button. And here we have collection. Okay, and you can see that the new collection is created right now. So I will rename it, for example, webinar. Okay. And we see we have our collection, which is empty right now. So we should create some new requests to the collection, and we can do it also pretty easy. We can click on the three dots, and here we have option add requests. And this brings us back to the request structure and the request definition. Okay, so for this purpose, we can use Swagger Pet Store API. I will show it to you. To minimize Postman again. Okay. I presume that most of you know how Swagger works. Is basically an API specification tool and tool to work with APIs. You can also send requests from here. And Swagger has also their testing APIs for us available. And this one is pet store, and it basically works like a little pet shop. Yeah. So as you can see, here are some APIs predefined, and we have requests like get to find pet by ID. Also, we have some post request to add new pet to the store. We can also update an existing pet with put method, and we can also delete pet depending on the ID. So for this purpose, we will use post pet. So we will create new pet in the store. So if we expand the detail, here we have basically the API specification about this request. And as you can see, we have the body attribute, and this is what needs to be sent in a body. So I will copy it. And here in Postman, I will do these things next. So as you can see, the method is post. So we can't have get, and we will have to switch to post. And now we can switch to body. We will select row, and we will paste our body here. Okay. What we are missing is the endpoint now. And the endpoint is on the Swagger specified right here. As you can see, there is base URL petstore.swagger.io/v2. So what I can do is I can take this whole URL until the v2. I will copy it and paste it here. And what I can see in the specification is that this service is on the server on the path /pet. So what I need to do is to write this to the endpoint section. So I will type slash and I will do pet. Okay. You can see that there is an orange dot in the Postman right now. And this means that this request is not saved with the newest data. So I will just save it. So I have everything actual. And what I can do is I can also rename this request. So I will take it as create pet. Okay. And now, based on the API specification, which is here, we have to specify ID of the new pet. So let's say it will be 36. Then we have some category object. And in this object is attribute ID. So I can specify it as 1. It really doesn't matter here because it's only a testing API. So the values are upon you what you will use. This will not happen in real life. You will get HTTP 400 for bad request if you don't send exact data as are specified and implemented. Okay, so the category name, we can say it will be category. Okay, now we have to specify pet name. So let's say it will be new doggy as it was here. Okay. We can also provide some URLs for photos of the pet. So for now, I will use just some made up URL like this. And here are also text. So I will also use some random data now. Like test tag. Status can be available. We don't have to change that. Okay. Now I will save the request. Now I can send it, or I can check the headers which are here. We can check the content type, and this is also the beauty of Postman, that Postman identified that we are using JSON, and he also specified it in the headers in the content type, so the server will know that we are sending JSON. Okay, so what we can do now is to send request, and as you can see, the status code is 200, which is okay. So this is the successful status code. And if you hover with mouse over this status code, you will see that request successful, the server has responded is required. You also have the response time here. So you will see how quickly the request was processed and how quickly the response was sent. And there is also a response size, which was sent from server to you. Okay, so this was pretty easy, and like most of the work with Postman. And what we can do now, we can check how the environments work. So as you can see, there are two places which says environment. First is here, and the second is down here. So the first one on the top right corner is meant for choosing on which environment I like to work now. This bottom one is meant for managing the environments. So right now I don't have any environment created. So what I will do is I will create new environment, and let's name it like int enable. Okay, like integration environment. And we can also create one. We can name it as a UAT enable for now. Okay. And this is where we will stop for now. And we will go back to the presentation because I would like to tell you about variables. So I will minimize Postman. Save these other ones. Okay. Good. Variables. Really useful thing, and I think that this is something that all of the testers and developers and everybody knows what is it good for. Basically, to give you some TLDR, variables works like we specify some variable or some data, and we want to reuse it on different places. So it's not effective thing for us to write it all the time again and again and again. But we will specify a variable once, and we will use it all across our projects, requests, code, everything that we need to. And also variables in Postman are very good to transfer values between requests. You can imagine a situation that, for example, you send one request, and in the response, you will get some ID. And you need to take this ID and you need to use it in another request. You can imagine it on the analogy in our pet shop. For example, you will create new pet, and the pet will be assigned with new ID. So we want to take this ID and use it in the GET request to verify that the pet was created. And since we are talking about automation and we want to work effectively, We won't do it manually all the time, but we will store the ID in the variable, and in the other requests, we will use just the variable. Okay, so the basic syntax of the variables in Postman is also pretty straightforward. On the beginning, you type two curly braces and the variable name that you have named your variable, and on the in the end, also two curly braces to close it. Okay. In Postman, we know different scopes of variables, and these are pretty self-explanatory. The variable with biggest scope is global, and these variables are accessible for all of the requests, for all of the collections, and all of the environments. Okay, if we have environment variable, that means that the variables are accessible for the requests and collections which are using this environment. And then we have collection variables, and these are available only for the requests in that specific collection. So for example, I have collection 1 where I have variable ID, and I have a second collection named collection 2, for example, and I want in the second collection use the ID variable for the first one. I won't be able to, because Postman won't let me to, and since the scope is for the collection, only the requests from the same collection will be able to use that variable. And the last one is local, and as it says, it's only scoped for the specific requests. So for example, I will use some pre-request script, which we will see in a minute, and I will generate some unique data, for example, some unique ID or some unique number. And I want to use it in just this one request, so I don't have to specify it as a collection variable or an environment variable, but I will have it just as a local. But what I need to take in the accountability is that this variable won't be transferable to other requests since it's local. So it depends on you how you will select your variable scopes. And in the topic of hierarchy of the variables, I will show it to you on the Postman example. But it basically works like that the closest variable wins. So what it means, let's say I have a variable named endpoint, and I have it set in collection and also in environment. And this hierarchy means that if I use the endpoint variable, which is also in collection and also in environment, the variable from the collection will be used. It's because of how Postman works and how it's designed, and the specific request is closer to the collection than to the whole environment. So you can remember it like it is written here, or like a little pyramid. On the top, which is the furthest one, is the global. Then under it is environment, which is a bit closer. Then there is collection, and the last one is local. So the local is the closest one, and the global is the furthest one. It's nothing hard. It's pretty easy. And if you work with Postman, you will figure it out very quick. Okay. And for this, we can go to Postman to show it an example. We have created our environments, and I will implement the variables theory to this. And as I have mentioned, we testers work with different testing environments. And this often means that we have different endpoint for the integration environment, we have different endpoint for the acceptance environment, and we have different endpoint for example, production environment. And let's say I want to test this API on different environments, and I don't want to manually rewrite the endpoint all of the time. So let's take the endpoint. Now let's paste it to our integration environment. So I will call the variable like point, and I will assign it this value. Okay. Same thing I will do with UAT environment. I will call it endpoint, and I will paste this value here. But since we are pretending that this is different environment, we will modify the endpoint, which will not work, but for the show purposes, it's perfect. So let's use it like this. Okay. What's important to mention, if you wanna use the full potential of environments, you have to name the variables that you are reusing between the different environments the same. So I have it named endpoint in UAT, and I also have it named as endpoint in integration environment. So what I will do in the request now is I will delete this endpoint, and I will start with curly braces. And you can see that Postman already identified that there is a variable present. And you can see that there is a green E in a square, which stands for environment. So the variable scope is environment in here. So I will click on endpoint. And right now I can use the full potential of the environments. You can see that I have selected UAT, ENV. So let's say I want to test this API first on the integration environment, which is on a different endpoint. So I will choose the int environment, and I will send the request. And you can see that the request has passed. And if you want to see how where the request was sent, we can click here on console. And down here we have a list of requests that we have sent. So I can open the last one. And what I can check is request body. Okay, you can see what is the request body that I have sent the request to. And somewhere here is our endpoint that I have sent the request to, which you can also see in this not expanded view. So it was on the right endpoint. Now, if I switch the environment to the UAT, which have the corrupted endpoint for our purposes, but it's different. So like I will send this request now. And you see that we already got an error, method not allowed. And it's because of the wrong endpoint. But for this important here, that you can see that the request was sent to another endpoint. And this is really the best value about these environments, that you have only few variables set depending on the environment, and you are just switching the environments and you are not changing anything in the requests. And this is also very useful in Newman automation, which we will see in a minute. Okay, and in case of collection variables, you can specify them also pretty easily. And if you click on your collection, here you have variables. And here you can specify what variable you want. So let's say we will have a pet name variable, and we will name it like okay. Sorry. Okay. And now what I can do in the requests here, where I have my dog name, I will simply use variable. So I will do the curly braces and I will write. And you can see as I started writing pet, it already identified that I have a pet name variable inside collection. And so I can choose it. I will save the request. Send the request. I have to switch the environment back to the right one. And if I send the right now, see that the variable was replaced with its value. So this is the beauty and simplicity of variables in Postman. Most of the times you will be using collection and environment variables. The globals and the locals are not that much used. Okay, and we should have time for another survey right now. So we can check. Okay, we are already getting some answers. Okay, I will give you a bit of time. Okay, once again, most of you are right. Yes, it's global variable. Good, thank you. Okay, I see that we are mostly out of time, so I will speed up a little bit, but I want to show everything. So we will continue. So let's get back to the presentation. Okay, next topic is dynamic variables, and this is really useful embedded Postman feature. And what it do for us, it solves unique or random data need in requests. And I think all of you have encountered situation where you needed some random number or some random ID, random string, random name generated. And most of the times you have used some external JavaScript or Java libraries, depending on what programming language you are using. For example, in SOAP UI, it was Groovy, so Java. And you have used some complex code for it, or I don't want to say complex, but code itself, and you don't need this in Postman. And I will show you why. Postman provides us with dynamic variables, which are generating these values on demand. And how you can use them, it's really simple. You will start with two curly braces, and then the $sign, which specifies that this is the dynamic variable. And then you will choose one from the list that is provided by Postman. For example, a random int is for random integer, so the random number will be generated. Postman have a list of available variables on their web page. I will quickly show it to you so you can see by yourself. It should be here. If you just type Postman dynamic variables, as the first result in Google will be this Postman web page, and you can see the list of available variables. So the most common ones are GUID, and if you can, as you can see in example, it will generate you this random GUID. If you use timestamp, the random timestamp will be generated, and we can also work with ISO timestamp. Then with numbers and text, we have a random alphanumeric, a random int, a random color, and there are a lot of other things that we can use. You can see that the internet and IP addresses, names, professions, phone numbers, addresses, locations, images, finances. So there is a lot of things to use. And how can we use it in our requests? It's pretty easy. As I mentioned, we can go to Postman. And let's say that I want the ID to be something different all of the time. So I will delete Mr. 6, and I start typing two curly braces, and I will start with $. And you can already see that the Postman has shown the list of available dynamic variables. So I will check for the random number. I will do it like this number int. Yep, int. And you can see it's a random int, and the description is a random integer between 0 and 1000. Okay, so I will do it like this. Now, when I send the request, you see that this time the ID was 585. Next time it will be something else, like 404. And every time it's something else. We can also use it for the photo URL, for example. So if I am able to delete this, of course. Okay, and let's type $, and let's say what is here for photo. Or URL. Random image URL, as you can see. And when we use this and we send the request, you see that the photo URLs array was filled with the randomly generated photo URL. And in this manner, we can continue with all of the attributes. We can use it in headers for these timestamps or GUIDs and so on. So this is really upon you that what you will use and what you will need, but definitely you don't have to write any code to generate new test data every time, and you just have to use these dynamic variables, which is pretty easy and straightforward. Okay. Let's go back to presentation. We have next is scripting. So this is also the very easy topic in Postman, since Postman has also some predefined scripts that you can use, and probably you won't need anything else. So the scripting language in Postman is based on Java, and it's basically a Java framework which Postman uses. You will see in a minute in the example. And what the request types we know. We have a pre-request script and post-response script. So in pre-request script, we can, for example, generate some test data that will be used in the request body. And if I am not able to use dynamic variables and I have to use code, so I will write the code to generate the test data in the pre-request script, because it's executed before the request is sent. In case of post-response script, what I can do here is I can check if the status code of the request of the response is correct, so what I am expecting. I can also take the attributes from response and save it in the variables. I can check if some value is present in the response. And this is pretty much everything that we are testing. And we can also test for response time. I will show you how to do it. And as I said, it's pretty easy because of these snippets. And this is something that Postman is already providing us with. It's basically code examples and examples of tests, how to script them in Postman, and we can directly generate and use them. So I will show you how it works in Postman. So let's get back. So here you can see that we have a section scripts, and we have pre-request and post response. So let's say we will use post response this time, that we want to assess our response. So, and as I mentioned, we have the snippets. So I click on snippets, and I can see that there are already predefined a lot of code snippets. So let's say that we want to assert that this status code is 200. So the request was successful. And I don't want to write any code, because most of the times I'm lazy and I want to be effective. So I click on the snippets. I choose this status code, and code is 200. And you can see that the Postman has already generated the code for me. So the function name, I can let it be, because it's pretty self-explanatory. And what I am using here is that PM, which stands for Postman response, to have status 200. Okay, if I save it now and I send the request, you can now see that the section test results shows that 1 from 1 and it's green. So that means that the one test from one test has passed. So I will click here, and I can see that this test was passed. Okay. If I, for example, modify this status code for 201, and I send it like this, then I will see that the test was failed. And I also have the explanation of the error, and it's assertion error, expected response to have status code 201, but we got 200. So this is the basic process how to write tests in Postman. And let's say that we want to also assert, let's say that the status will be available. Okay, so I don't have to write another code. I will just click on snippets and check if there is anything that I can use. And from what I can see, we have response body, JSON, value check. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now your test name, so we can modify it to check available. Okay, and what you can see here, this var JSON data equals pm.response.json. It basically means that we are storing in variable named JSON data this response. So this is parsing this response into the variable so we can work with it. And the last step is to do the assertion. So in Postman is also expect. So we will use pm.expect. And now we will use the JSON data body variable. And now I have to specify the way to this attribute. And as I can see, it's not nested in any other objects or arrays. It's in the main object of the response. So all I need to do is to rename this value to status. And what I want it to equal to is this available. So I will do it like this. Okay. Like this. And right now, if I send the request, we can see that both of the tests has passed. So with this code snippets, you don't really have to do anything in case of coding, because the most used ones are present here. You can check if some string is present, if the content type header has a specific value. We can check if the response time was in a correct time interval. And what we can do, what is still good, we can set variables, which I have mentioned earlier, that we can set a variable and use it in another request. And for this, we also don't have to write any code. Everything I need to do, I will choose to set a collection variable, for example, or an environment variable. So let's say I will use a collection variable. And you can see that there is already pre-generated script. So variable key. So this is our variable name. So let's say I want to store the pet ID. So I will do pet. Yeah. Okay. And now the variable value. So I have to take the value from the response. And as we have seen, this one code is used for parsing the response. So I will just copy it, and just to be not a white coder, but a responsible coder, I will specify the variable here. I will delete from there, so it will act as a global line of code. What I want to do now is I want to specify a new variable, so var ID. And what I do, I want to go to the response body, so I will use JSON data, and I want the attribute ID to be saved, so I do it like this. Okay. And in this line of code, I will replace it with ID like this. Okay. And if I run the test now, I see that the test has passed. And if I check the collection variables, you see that there is pet ID already set. And if I had another request here, for example, the get request, and it needs pet ID in the endpoint, so I will use it simply like this, and pet ID. So that's everything you need to do. It's pretty straightforward and also very easy. So there is not much work with this. Okay. We can go back to our presentation. And we are off to the last section, which is Newman automation. Okay. What's good to know about Newman is that it's a Node.js library. So in order to work with Newman, you have to have installed Node.js and npm package manager to work with this library. What is Newman good for? As I mentioned, it's to run Postman collections and tests from command line interface. So I don't have to open Postman every time, but what I can do is I can export my collection as a JSON file, also my environment as a JSON file. And in command line, I will use Newman to run specific collection and also to run it with specific environment. And this process is mostly used in CI/CD pipelines. So if, let's say, we are using Jenkins or GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps, and we want to implement our Postman API testing as a part of CI/CD pipeline, so we will choose and run Newman. In order to work with Newman, as I mentioned, we have to install it first. So I will show you the command for this. Okay. I hope it will be good for you to see. I'm not sure if I can. I'm not able to zoom it, I'm sorry. But the command is npm install -g Newman. I won't install it because I already have it, but you can find it pretty easy with Google, ChatGPT, everything. It's straightforward process, nothing really complex and hard. And if we want to run our tests, we have to do two things now. First, we need to go back to the Postman, and we have to export this collection as a JSON file. And in Postman, we can do it pretty easily. We will click on the collection and on these three dots. And down here, you have more. And you can see that there is export collection. Okay, and here there is export JSON. Okay. I'll click it one more time. I'm not sure why it is not working. Okay, it is. Now, the name, I will simply name it as a test, and I can do it on my desktop. Okay. And see that the collection was exported successfully. And what I need to do is to also export the environment. And it's really important not to forget to, because we have our endpoint specified as an environment variable. So I will go down on the environment which I want, and there are 3 dots. And here is also option to export. So I will click. I will do it like int.json also on the desktop. Okay, save. You can see that the environment was exported successfully. And everything I have to do now is go back to the terminal. Okay, so I am probably not on desktop now. Yep, so I have to go to the file location. See, okay. Now we'll check if the files are there. Yes, in JSON and test JSON. Cool. So I will create a console, and how to run it now, it's pretty straightforward. We will use command Newman run. Now we have to specify which collection we want to run. So for us is the test.json. And now we have to specify the environment. So which environment variables will be used. And in that case, we use -e like environment, and we will specify the file name. So for us, it's int.json. Okay, and right now, all I need to do is press enter, and you can see that test is run, and there is some request URL is empty. I don't know why, because we have it in our variables. So this is probably error in Newman right now, as I have already encountered it. But the main and important thing is that this is how we run your Postman tests. But if I check for the test JSON for the environment file, it's empty. Okay, it looks like it was saved as empty. I'm sure, so I will just modify it for you very quick, so we can have the full demo. Take this. I paste it in the JSON file. Okay, I will save it. And now if I run it again, yes, you can see that the test has test. So what we can see here in the console log is that there was a create pet request. There is the request specification, so it was post request to this endpoint of the pet store, and there are informations about response. So we have 200 OK status code. This is the response size and the response time. And we also can see here that our test for status code and status attribute has passed. So we have this pretty good summary for the first look. And there is also table with how the test was run. So how many iterations? For us, it was 1 iteration with 1 request, 2 test scripts, 1 pre-request script, and 2 assertions. So there is this quick test report, we can call it. But there also exists external test reporters for Newman, and you can install a Newman HTML reporter, which will provide you with pretty nice and concise HTML report. Okay. Now we have time for questions. So I will open the question now. Sorry. Okay. 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 I'm going to check for the questions. Okay, I can see the first questions about if I was able to zoom in the Postman. Postman, I was not able to zoom the Postman. I'm really sorry. The only possibility is that you would zoom your screen on the Google Meet, but we will provide you with the link to this webinar. And if you haven't seen something, you can zoom it there. I'm really sorry for this, but this is not something I can, how to say it. Yeah, this is not something I can do. I'm really sorry. Okay, when would you not use Postman? Okay, this is a good question. Me personally, I wouldn't use Postman if I have, for example, a huge set of REST APIs, and I want to automate it by code, since I'm a coder. So I would prefer a REST assured framework for this, because it's easily implemented with, for example, Cucumber framework, and you can write your tests in Gherkin syntax. And also the one case when I wouldn't use Postman is for performance testing. And that's because it's a paid functionality. You have to have a Postman subscription, and you are not able to do a lot of performance testing types. You are tied to load testing. You are not able to do the stress testing, etc. So there are limited possibilities how to design your performance test. Okay, we have question from Zuzana. Is it possible to show some example for authorization in Postman? I can try to show it to you on this testing API, because this depends on how the API is programmed and implemented. And actually this pet store is not tied to any authorization, but I can try to show it to you like this. I will open Postman. Okay, let's say we want the authorization, and we will use the basic authorization. So I will do it like test. Okay. Now, as I send the request, we can check the headers, and we see that there is already authorization header implemented. And since it is authorization header and the data are sensitive, we don't have the value shown here. So you can open it by this eye icon. And here you can see that the Postman did all of the base 64 encoding for you. And in case of, for example, this OAuth, I'm not able to show you the exact flow, how to perform it, because this API doesn't support OAuth. But it will be the pretty same process as you saw now, that you will just enter here token name and these other attributes as access token URL and client ID, client secret, and scope. This is everything that you would be provided by your developer or infrastructure manager or architect. So this is also how I do it on my current project, that if I need OAuth authorization, I ask for these values, they provide me with it, and I just fill it in Postman, and I am good to go with the requests. Okay, next question. How would you manage environment for multiple teams? Okay, I hope that you are meaning that these environments that we have seen here. Postman offers workspace functionality, so you can invite your colleagues to work with you. And it's also a paid functionality of Postman. So you have to have a enterprise subscription or some sort of paid subscription to Postman to be able to work on a Postman in the same file now. But you can do it for free to always export the collection and just upload it on GitHub, and your other colleague will clone the repository and work on the collection and push the changes. So this is one way how you can go around with it. Or then pay, yes. And with multiple environments, you can just export also the environment files and go with the GitHub as well, or then with the paid subscription. Postman is slowly becoming more pay to win, as I would say, but you can still do a lot of things for free. Okay. Is it possible to mock external dependencies using scripts? If you are asking about mock servers in Postman, yes, you are able to use mocks to mimic some API responses. And if you are talking about external dependencies, like you need to send some request or use some external libraries. Postman supports external libraries like Crypto.js, for example, or Moment.js. You can find the list online. But I wish I could ask you what you really meant with this question to be more specific. But yes, as I said, you have mock servers here, and you can create new mock for this. Let's see here, we have mock server, and you can write name for which collection you want to create mock server. And in the other steps, you will be provided with functionality how to mimic or simulate API responses from the functionalities that are not implemented yet. Okay. Let's go next. How to set different tests for endpoint. Okay, I understand. This is really a topic for a Postman advanced webinar, what we should do next. But here in scripts, you can use method PM next request is, I think it is items. From different execution. Okay. Yeah. So we can use PM execution and select request or run request, and here you can specify what tests, what request you want to run, and what tests should be implemented and executed, and what assertions. So you can use this set next request and work with this. But this is really a topic for another webinar because it's more complex, and we don't have time for it right now. I'm sorry. Okay, and the last questions: will there be more advanced webinar? I hope so. I think we can prepare more for you because I am well aware that this is really basic stuff, and there is much more to do in Postman. So I will prepare something more for you, and I hope I will see you next time with more advanced functionalities. Okay, and since we don't have no other questions, I can tell you about some our upcoming events and trainings that we offer as Krone. So up next, there is another online webinar, and it is introduction to the ISTQB Gen AI tester with David Janota. It will be on the 7th of May at 16 o'clock, so 4 p.m. So we are looking forward to see you. And the next, also as every year, we are organizing a Testing United conference, which will take place in Copenhagen in Denmark this year. And it's during 25th and 26th November. So we also would like to see you there, and I am encouraging you to buy tickets because the conference has a really good program, and the topic of the conference about harmonizing humans and machines is really trending, and it's really something that you should visit and to get new information from the worldwide speakers. And if you would connect with me on LinkedIn, I will have a coupon code for the ticket discounts ready for you. So don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can save some money, and we can all see each other there, and we can, for example, have a beer and chat a bit about AI and the new trends in testing. Okay, thank you. That was all from my side, and we see each other next. And I will promise you that there will be more at the seminar.